Welcome to The Favorites, the podcast from the Volume Podcast Network. I am Chad Millman. We are probably less than 90 days away from the start of the NFL season. We are in mid-June, which means we are about 5 weeks away from the beginning of training camps. What matters the most when you talk about NFL training camps? Quarterbacks. We have the perfect guests to talk about quarterbacks today. The most challenging, intriguing, interesting, exciting quarterback room scenarios with Matthew Friedman. The best quarterbacks against the point spread with Matthew Friedman and Simon Hunter. The quarterback scenarios you must bet on in week one, according to the opportunities presented by our friends and friendly sponsors at FanDuel. Simon Hunter's going to talk about that. Matthew Friedman's going to respond to that, which means it's time to welcome in my BFF, my companion, professional bettor Simon Hunter. Hello.
Chad, right off the top, where are you going next week? You're saying you need a week off. I need to know. I didn't want to ask. I wanted to save for the show. Where is Chad going? You taking an actual vacation?
Listen to me. Listen to me.
Listening.
I am taking an actual vacation, not just like a vacation, but I'll be online vacation, which is what everybody has done during the pandemic. And, I'm a leader. That's what I try to do. And I have been preaching to all of my friends and colleagues at the Action Network. We all need to take vacation. The pandemic has been incredibly stressful. If we were staying at home with our families and taking time off, we didn't know what to do with ourselves. And so we continued to check our phones. We're in Slack, we're in Google Analytics, we're doing Zoom calls because you might as well, because you're just sitting there. Even when I took vacation last year with my family and we left our house in Connecticut and rented a house in Rhode Island, I was still doing calls every day because it didn't feel any different. We were just in a different place. So I am going to take vacation next week, and I think it'll be the first time, and I'm not saying this to be a hero, I'm just saying it like that's sort of just the reality, especially after the pandemic. We're renting a house in Cape Cod. My sister is flying in from the Bay Area with her husband and 3 kids. All of us got a house together. My dad is going to fly in from Chicago. He's going to stay at a hotel nearby because there's not enough room in the house because there's like 10 of us in the house. And I'm totally unplugging. Like yesterday, I went through and canceled meetings. I let you guys know I wasn't going to be around for the podcast. I let my friend Colin Cowherd know I wasn't going to be around to do his podcast. I found guest hosts for our various NBA shows. We're launching a new show with MLB. We're going to rehearse it next week. I won't be there. I'm just not going to check in. It's going to be like a real vacation.
Chad. Cape Cod during great white season. That's why I love you, Chad. You're the best.
No fear, my friend.
Chad, I have to know, do I get to be the guest host once again on this podcast when you are gone next week?
Listen, I'll tell you what. It's up to Matt Mitchell and Simon. I said to them yesterday, entirely up to you guys. You want to skip the week? Skip the week. You want to find a guest host? Find a guest host. If you want to be the guest host, Friedman, there's only one thing you need to do before the end of the week. I think you know what it is. I think I know you know what I want you to do. You give me the right answer, and fuck yes, we will do a podcast, at least one, and you can guest host it.
Okay. Well, I would say that based on my previous appearance, I should automatically be the guest host anytime you go on vacation, regardless of whatever answer I do or do not come back with on Friday.
Well, listen, I disagree with you. Okay. So only if you give me the answer I want can you be the guest host. Okay. But that's what I'm going to do. Not afraid of sharks. I eat sharks for breakfast.
Well, as a surfer, the first thing they teach you is you punch the nose or you stick your finger in their eye, Chad. So no matter what, buddy, as long as you keep in mind when you got your leg chomped down on, you're going to get out of it. Don't worry.
The truth is, I actually eat rolled oats for breakfast. Overnight rolled oats. Simon, you've been bitten by a shark. Didn't you once have your hand nearly taken off by a shark?
Yeah, it's one of my classic lines at a bar to a girl. I've been bit by a shark, and then later on, I tell him it was a baby shark, and there is no mark. It would bit my hand, but yep, I'm a shark survivor, Chad.
I'm surprised that your love life is going the way it is, given that that's one of your opening lines.
How dare you? I am actually killing it. The Roaring 20s, Chad. I already told you. If there was ever a time in human history to be single, it's right after a pandemic. I'm telling you, it's literally fishing with dynamite right now, Chad. I can't miss. It's a good life.
Tell me the latest that I need to know.
Oh, I am soulless right now. Ever since I got my heart broken, I was trying to go for the relationship. Now I've gone the complete other way where I'm an assassin right now. I do not care. I'm just I can't find happiness and I'm just going through the motions, but it's just so many people are just out right now. It's just like usually I'll be honest, in our area, New Jersey, the tri-state Northeast area, the women here are tough. They've been burned by a lot of men. So they got a little guard up where they think every guy's a scumbag, which to them, they're right. Most guys are scumbags. But because they've been trapped inside for a year and a half, I've never met so many happy girls in New Jersey. It's incredible right now, especially Philadelphia, like nice, happy girls right now. So it is a magical time.
I will tell you, I married a woman from Staten Island, obviously the tri-state area. She could not be the sweetest. She is the sweetest, kindest, most empathetic. Like you look in her eyes and you know she only wants to help you do good with whatever you want, right? But she's also from Staten Island. And so, like, I've seen her get Staten Island on.
I was gonna say, if you cross that line, Chad, woo,
dude, it's just like
flip the
I've
switch.
seen the Staten Island come out, not on me, but I've seen it happen because she's also an architect, and so she deals with contractors, and like I've seen her have to be Staten Island, and I got to tell you, I kind of love it. You know, I'm not living a soulless life of emptiness like you, Simon. But
no, you're in your 50s, Chad. You shouldn't be.
I am in my 50s. That is true. I have turned 50. Hey, we're going to talk about quarterbacks today.
Let's go.
And before we do that, I do want to show one thing. So, as we know, I love this is a Sid Luckman bobblehead. Sid Luckman, who was a quarterback for the Bears for most of their championships. In sort of their glory years, looking back in like the 30s and 40s, went to Columbia, one of the greatest first modern era quarterbacks that ever lived, right? Sid Luckman, bobblehead. Went to high school with his grandkids. Everyone knows I love the Bears. You can see the Bears banner over my shoulder. We talk about the Bears all the time. My heart opens and closes with the Bears and what they're doing, what they're not doing. So, a man named Dave Eck, who works for the Bears, is a listener to the podcast, give him a shout out, sent me a box of Bears swag, including this Sid Luckman bobblehead, which we will now refer to as Sid Lucky Luckman. And this will be, we'll rub his head, and this will be how we end up having a great season in Chicago, both as bettors, as fans, as a team. On the road back to glory with Justin Fields. That's what I'm talking about. If anybody's watching Bears social media, they saw Matt Nagy throwing ropes during practice. We're coming back, baby.
Yeah, my favorite quote out of the Bears camp has to be the receiver talking about how he was smiling his first time catching a ball from Justin Fields because the ball looked so perfect coming out of Justin Fields' hands. I mean, that has to make you feel so good, Chad.
It does. But you know what is interesting? Like I get, I as you know, I was at ESPN for a long time. And so I get alerts for a lot of different teams. I actually never stopped it. You get alerts for the teams that your boss loves because you want to make sure, like if he calls you on a Saturday morning, why did this happen? I didn't get an alert. You want to know if the alert came or not. But also I get it for like the Cowboys and the Patriots and like the high profile teams. So I still get them. And every alert from ESPN reporters is framed, Patriots coaches love Mac Jones. They think he's amazing. I'm like, of course you're fucking saying that. You're writing about the Patriots for fans of the Patriots. So I don't expect much critical thinking to be happening about Justin Fields right now. Freeman, got anything to add?
I just want to say it was a great story, Chad. It started strong and it finished stronger. And I can't wait to fill in with equally strong stories next week.
I feel like Freeman's mocking me. I've never I've never hated Freeman more than I do right now.
I believe that.
Let's let's talk about quarterbacks. Freeman, before we came on, you wisely said we should look at it from a room-to-room scenario. That's how you've been thinking about it. Give me your thoughts on what's happening in various quarterbacks rooms right now. Give me the most intriguing, the most interesting, most exciting, best cases for quarterback rooms, meaning quarterback situations around the NFL.
I mean, it starts with the Packers for sure. This is the storyline that is owning the offseason. Is Aaron Rodgers going to report to Packers training camp? If he stays with the Packers, and I think that ultimately is what happens because really he has no leverage. If he stays, this is a top 5, top 3 quarterback room just because you have Aaron Rodgers coming off of an MVP season. And in today's NFL, quarterbacks are aging like wine. Even though he's older, he still could be great for another 3 to 5 years. Of course, the Packers have seemingly gone out of their way for the past year to alienate their franchise quarterback. And so it wouldn't be a surprise if somehow a month, 2 months from now, this is a bottom 5 quarterback room with Aaron Rodgers somehow retired or traded away if he gets more leverage. And you're looking at 2 quarterbacks in Jordan Love and Blake Bortles, who you put them together and it's like, I mean, it's bad quarterback stew. You really don't even know which one you would rather have starting in week 1. So you have a top 5, top 3 quarterback room right now with Aaron Rodgers. If the Packers make a mistake and a half, a month from now, this could be a bottom 3, bottom 2 quarterback room that we're looking at. So this, to me, is the most intriguing quarterback room in the entire league, followed closely, I would say, by Houston with Deshaun Watson. Who knows what will happen with him? And then after him, Tyrod Taylor and Davis Mills. I mean, that's a really bad situation. Looking at it in a vacuum, I don't think Watson plays this year. And that means we got Tyrod Taylor, who is eminently replaceable. But of course, the Texans don't have anyone to replace him with. I think the Texans right now, even though they have Deshaun Watson, they have the worst quarterback situation in the league.
You want to talk about a quarterback stew? Bob Avellini, Mike Phipps, Vince Evans. That's a run of quarterbacks for the Chicago Bears in the 70s and 80s, which is why they're giving out bobbleheads of Sid Luckman. Simon, do you have thoughts on what Friedman just said?
Yeah, I'm with him. The Houston one's really intriguing because even if he does play this year, Watson, that team is such a train wreck. You just like look at them on paper. They have like 10 running backs and no receivers. It's just the most bizarre put together team. And like, again, do your own due diligence. Read about the guy who's running the team now. The GM is, I don't know. He's one of these stories where it's like this guy who just talked his way into a position in football. It's like he started out as working for the church at the Patriots, and now he's all of a sudden running a team in the NFL. And I don't think he knows what he's doing. And I just look at that team that I took their under already. I think it was 5, it might be down to 4.5 now. I'm with him on it. It's just an absolute train wreck there. But for all the like intriguement, to me, I'm really interested in seeing what's going to happen with the Bills. I love Josh Allen so much, but I love the fact that Bills fans now have to live with the fact that at any moment, a running quarterback they love could go down and Mitch Trubisky is coming on the field. It's just, I love it. To me, there's nothing better because we know how passionate Bills fans are. I am waiting for it. In week 3, week 4, whatever happens, Mitch has to come on the field, and I just cannot wait to go to Twitter and just see what's happening with Bills fans because it's truly going to be magical.
Well, listen, Mitch Trubisky, I'll note, Sid Luckman bobblehead. All right, number 1. Number 2, the Bills. Simon, I already bet a Bills future, and you're telling me how much you love Josh Allen. And I know that doesn't mean, all right, go bet the Bills' future because of pricing and everything else. But certainly compared to the Patriots, compared to the Jets, compared to the Dolphins, it's hard to find a better quarterback room in New England just by virtue in the AFC East, just by virtue of who's on top of the food chain there.
Yeah, I definitely do think it's a great QB room. That's what I'm saying. But I just love the drama of the whole thing. But I already told you I'm going to be one of the rare people. I'm going to be off the Bills this coming season. It's one of those teams I'm going to zag on because everyone's going to be zigging on them. They're just going to come in so hyped for good reason. They're a great team. They're well coached. But that's why I told you early on in the year, I just love the value on Miami. I just think the upside with Tua, everything about Miami, there just seems like there's more value built into Miami than it is taking the Bills at this point.
Well, it's an interesting way to look at it as from a quarterback room's perspective, right? Like Texans are a mess. Packers could be a mess. There is a decent amount of stability. You know, the Jags have stability right now. You know that the Titans have stability. The Bengals, the Browns, the Ravens, Steelers kind of have stability. Broncos are a mess. Chargers have stability. Raiders have stability. Chiefs have stability. Jets have stability, but they're not going to be a factor when it comes to quarterback room. So I'm just like, I'm doing this for the audience sake to narrow down the conversations around quarterback rooms. Because Friedman, I think the other two most interesting conversations have got to be the Eagles and the Niners, where that's sort of the most instability, most highest ceiling, lowest floor.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think with the 49ers, it's high ceiling, high floor, really, regardless of whoever's quarterback. And a lot of that is the offensive system. We've seen Jimmy Garoppolo have success when he's been healthy within that system. And then Trey Lance, with the combination of arm strength and rushing ability that he has, I think he could do well pretty quickly if he ends up overtaking Garoppolo, whether that's in the preseason or in the middle of the season. So I think that's a pretty strong quarterback room. I see your point entirely with the Eagles because there's so much uncertainty, both with the quarterback situation. Will we see the second rounder, Jalen Hurts, develop into a better quarterback in his second season? And then with the offensive system, he's going to have to learn something new. And there's a lot of uncertainty with his wide receiver situations. And then he has Joe Flacco. I mean, it's not as if anyone's wanting Joe Flacco to start, but if Jalen Hurts doesn't do well to start the season, a coaching staff could look at Flacco and say, okay, this guy's at least a veteran who's won a lot of games in the NFL. So there is a lot of volatility in Philadelphia in terms of how well Hurts could do and then how poorly he could do, and then what that means for the franchise.
There cannot be a coaching staff with any credibility that looks at Joe Flacco and says, yeah, this guy's won games 8 years ago. Let's give him a chance.
Wow, Chad, look how cocky Chad is. Chad, can I remind you, we didn't want to go against Joe Flacco with Justin Herbert. That's how we got knocked out of a Survivor contest. You fear Joe Flacco. I hate you, Chad.
Joe Flacco.
I'm with him though about the Eagles. It's such dark days around here. Like, it's crazy to think 4 years ago we won a Super Bowl and neither of those quarterbacks are on the team right now. It's just a weird time for Philadelphia. And again, I like the upside of Hurts. I think he does have weapons around him. The O-line's really good. You never know. I just think the value is there that, again, on FanDuel, our friends at FanDuel, it's 75-1 right now for him to get MVP. So it sounds crazy. It doesn't make any sense right now. It's the same thing with Lamar Jackson. You're just looking at someone that has high upside, that we know they have the ability to do it and they have the weapons around him to do it. So this is simply just a play that I think he has the upside. Could he be benched week 6 for Nick Mullins or Joe Flacco? That's a possibility, but it's worth the risk at 75-1.
Mike Tomczak, Jim Harbaugh, Cade McNown, 3 other quarterbacks who played for the Chicago Bears that are unworthy of a Sid Luckman bobblehead.
If I didn't know that these were actual people, I would just assume you're making up names at this point.
It's amazing, right? When you think about some of these names, I think about Mike Tomczak. Look, Jim McMahon won a Super Bowl with the Bears in 1985, and then he kept getting injured. And so Mike Tomczak, who was basically an undrafted quarterback out of Ohio State, came in and kept playing really, really well. And so then there was a quarterback controversy, and then the Bears eventually traded away McMahon because they loved Tomczak. And I remember Tomczak, one year he separated his shoulder. And my parents owned they owned clothing stores. Simon, what are you laughing at? They owned clothing stores.
You and your tangents. I mean, I don't even get you down these paths sometimes. It blows my mind.
They owned clothing stores in the North Shore of Chicago, which is like the fancy suburbs of Chicago. And Mike Tomczak was once making an appearance for my parents at their clothing store. And he showed up and he had his arm in the sling and all that kind of stuff. And I remember someone came up to him and went, "Hey, Mike, how's it going?" and slammed him right in the shoulder. And I thought to myself, this is the luck of the Bears. Is Mike Tomczak getting paid $500 to go make an appearance, and some Yahoo who's not even a fan comes up and slams him on the shoulder. That's what happens.
Did you bet against the Bears that weekend? That's the real question.
I would think I was only like 13 or 14 at the time. I didn't know enough about betting. You know, I wasn't living the degenerate life that Simon lived. You know what I mean? I don't feel like we talked enough about the Niners. You sort of skipped over the Niners and the opportunities there and went right into the Eagles. And we talked about just how bad the Eagles are. Maybe that was my follow-up, is that was the problem.
Yeah, my view on the 49ers is just I'm on the train with everyone else. They had the worst health luck last year, so right there you're already building back that they're going to be way more healthier this year. I felt like I was one of the only people I was really talking about how Trey Lance. That's why I thought he might be going there. Is he gave me the RG3 vibes, and it was one of those things where people weren't really talking about how he coached RG3 and the Rookie of the Year, and that's why my whole thing was about the Trey Lance. And I was like, I could see it. He's got a running quarterback, or Justin Fields, he's a running quarterback. And now that we're here, it's definitely one of those where I'm thinking they're trying to do the same thing the Eagles did with Bradford. They're hoping there's a preseason injury. They can play it all cool. They say Jimmy and Trey are good right now, but they want to move on from Jimmy. I think that they've seen it. They just can't rely on someone that can't stay on the field. And they see that they're in a really small window here, and they need to capitalize on that. So I'm right there with them that it's an intriguing QB room, but it's one of those where I think they're going to move on from Jimmy, and it's just going to be the Trey Lance show. And in that division, you're going to have to have some balls to take Trey Lance in that division. He literally is going against, we're going to talk about him too later on, Stafford, who a lot of the guys on the desert, they keep talking about Stafford for MVP. They keep talking about the Rams, Super Bowl futures. That's a team that's getting hyped really hard. Then we have the Seahawks, Russell Wilson in that division. And again, I'm down on Arizona, but people really like Kyler Murray. So it is tough for me to back the 49ers here when I'm looking at the division and they could have a rookie quarterback starting in that division.
I am not a buyer, literally. I have probably bet a third of the teams in the NFL on Super Bowl futures. The Rams are one of the teams I have not bought. I'm not a buyer on Matthew Stafford. I'm not a buyer on Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay just because he's in a new offense. Too much positivity, like Sean McVay. Oh, I'm so happy now all of a sudden. Dude, you were part of the decision-making that gave Jared Goff a massive new contract. Like, come on. You're not a miracle worker in this situation. Matthew Stafford is not going to change who he is. Don't give me that face. I go back, Aqib Talib, on Colin Cowherd's podcast after the trade was made. Colin Cowherd asked him what he thought of Matthew Stafford. Aqib Talib's comment was, guys around the league, they're like, Matthew Stafford? That's what's going to get you to the Super Bowl? I'm not buying.
It's going to be weird here that I have to defend him because I am not the biggest Matthew Stafford fan either. I think he's injury prone. But he's also a guy who just spent his whole career in Detroit, one of the worst run organizations in the league. And I know you can say whatever you want about McVay. I think he's a genius. I think this guy is so far ahead of whatever you can wrap your head around, Chad, offensively. Like, someone that watches a lot of film, dude, this dude is a genius. Like, wait until you see Jared Goff in Detroit this upcoming season. Then maybe you're going to start appreciating McVay a little more.
He's going to be biting kneecaps.
But I don't know. I don't know why they love it so much. I'm right there with you. Stafford, to me, he's never done it. But I think they're saying that's a Detroit thing. And that the Rams, they have all the pieces there. Literally, they beat the Seahawks in the playoffs with a one-handed quarterback. So I don't know. I think that there is some upside to that team. I can see why the guys are betting them. But I'm right there with you. I have not placed any future bets on the Rams so far.
Friedman, you can choose one of these two coaches to coach your team Kyle Shanahan or Sean McVay?
I mean, I think that's a little unfair in that,
Yeah.
like, obviously
Not.
you go with
By the way,
Shanahan.
It's not. It's the question. It's
Yeah.
not.
You go with Shanahan. And Chad, I see your point. I think obviously you're right. McVay had a large hand in creating the circumstances in which he now must operate. But to be fair, Jared Goff is maybe a bottom 5 starting quarterback in the league. And McVay, maybe it's hubristic, but he at least thinks that he has the offensive aptitude as a play caller to have a team that competes as long as his quarterback is mediocre at worst. And I think that's probably the situation with Stafford. Like, I don't think Stafford is subpar. He's probably mediocre. Maybe he's a little bit better than that.
I love this idea. I love this idea that coaches believe they are so good and they can build such amazing systems and processes that at the most competitive levels of the most competitive sport, they think if I get a guy who's serviceable, I can get there. Just because Trent Dilfer did it, just because Brad Johnson Brad Johnson did it, all of a sudden, like, that set a tone that the coaches believe. Listen, at the end of the day, my job, I'm essentially a GM. I got to find talent. I got to fit it into my system. I got to get people in for the right price. Talent wins. That's it.
I'm telling you, that's all it is, though. Nick Foles, Joe Flacco, those guys both run Super Bowls. None of us sitting here think of them as great quarterbacks. They're just right time, right system of the team with a ton of talent. So I'm with a lot of GM's views that way, that it is all about the team around you. But of course, all of us want Aaron Rodgers. We all want a superstar quarterback, but we know the deal. There's only 3 or 4 of them every 10 years. That's just the way the NFL is.
Simon, if you're looking at quarterbacks, speaking of Matthew Stafford, how do you gauge what quarterbacks are worth the most against this point spread and what quarterbacks are worth the least against the point spread? Start with the most. Let Matthew Friedman respond. Then we will go to the least.
I mean, he knows it's going to be pretty basic. Like, you just go through top 5 quarterbacks. So Mahomes, Rodgers, when Breeze was playing, Tom Brady, or Lamar Jackson. All these quarterbacks that we know can put up points, they skew it up. It's tough to say how it goes with that because it's a lot of it does go into system and matchup. There's certain quarterbacks that there's certain defenses they just don't play well against. And it sounds bizarre, but you can go through different teams and look at their history. Like Patrick Mahomes, for some reason, he hasn't done great against the Chargers, or he hasn't done great against Oakland. When he plays that division, he's great against defenses that don't see him that often. So it is different depending on matchups. But for me, when people are trying to build out grading these quarterbacks, it's really hard. Like, say Tom Brady at his peak might have been worth 10 points to the spread, which sounds crazy, but there was a run there from 06 to 2010, 2011, where he was just untouchable. I mean, literally that undefeated season, what was that, 2007, 2008? He just was on an incredible run. And I honestly thought I would never have a quarterback ranked that high. And then Aaron Rodgers came on, and he was pretty much the same in points wise on his little run. And with Mahomes, it's been different. I'll never forget that playoff run last year or 2 years ago now. I remember I came on your show, Chad, and I said that I had them at minus, I think it was 11 or 10 against the Titans, and the line was like 6. And people were freaking out. They go, how can you have him minus 10 against the Titans? I'm just like, this is purely Mahomes. Like, when Mahomes is in the game, you add a touchdown to that game. And now we're at the point where he's probably 10 points now, Patrick Mahomes, to the spread. So if he's out of the game, Chiefs are going to be 10 points less. So I definitely think he's by far the number one, and everyone else is kind of close behind him.
This is a question for both of you, because I know bookmakers do this. How do you account for, speaking of quarterback rooms, the backups? So it could be back in the day, 3 or 4 years ago, Carson Wentz was having an MVP season. On his own, he's worth 7 points to get the point spread. But, and this is actually germane, because when he went out, the Eagles all of a sudden so many people downgraded them. They got downgraded quite a bit, but the wise guys didn't downgrade Nick Foles and Carson Wentz. So that's why they were betting on the Eagles in the Super Bowl and throughout the playoffs. They kept winning. How do you account for backups in your math? Friedman, if you think about this, you may answer first. If not, you may defer to Simon.
Yes, I do think about this. And Chad, that was actually early on in the days of Action Network, the Eagles in the Super Bowl. And I remember we had conversations about how Nick Foles shouldn't be discounted nearly to the extent that he was. I have, two different numbers, one for the starting quarterback, one for the backup quarterback. And so you just do the differential. Most of the backup quarterbacks are a slight negative. Although I should say, Simon earlier mentioned the Buffalo Bills. As far as backup quarterbacks go, you could do a lot worse than Mitchell Trubisky. So I think I have Josh Allen as one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the league by the point spread. The drop from Allen to Trubisky, I mean, it's a significant drop, but it's not nearly as significant as it would be if we're talking about Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love, for instance. So Trubisky as a backup, he actually elevates the quality of that room. And you just have the different numbers, the point spreads for all of these different quarterbacks. And, Josh Allen, Mitchell Trubisky, not as bad of a drop off as you would maybe expect.
Well, that's because you're an idiot.
Correct.
The Nick Foles thing is tough because that was definitely, the spread was skewed towards the Eagles, where you're saying, okay, I know that Nick Foles is a downgrade here, but we're talking about home dogs in the playoffs. And that's the only reason I was really all in on the Eagles. I love the value of them being, I think they're a 3.5 or 3-point dog to the Atlanta at home the first game. Then they're a 3-point dog to the Vikings. But I've watched that season about 1 million times. Nick Foles came in for the Rams. Came against the Rams when Wentz went down. I think he put up a total of 6 points. Like it was 2 field goals, or maybe it was 3 field goals. He then plays Oakland, who was horrible at the time and barely won at home, like 19-10 or something like that. Then he sat. Then he played Atlanta, where I don't even think he had a touchdown in that game. I think it was literally
first playoff game.
Right. Running touchdown and then a bunch of field goals. We won like 16-13, some trash game. The Minnesota Vikings, we were losing. And then thank God we were playing a backup quarterback in the Vikings. He threw a pick 6, and that's what kind of sparked the whole thing. So it is one of those where it's kind of luck, but it's all about situations. Like we talked about, the Eagles had one of the best teams put together. So that's why people hate on my Washington bet. I get it. I'm not the biggest Ryan Fitzpatrick fan, but I think Fitz is better than – I don't think he's the bottom 5 quarterback in the league. I think he's an improvement of what they had last year on a one-legged Alex Smith. And we have a great defense and a lot of weapons around him. So this is why I'm trying to get people to be in on the Washington football team. There's just a lot of value in backing a good team with good coaching with a solid quarterback. And that's what I'm looking for here. If you're giving me them 55-1, that's enough value to take on a team like that.
Right now, it's time for a Lizzo song break. New man on the Minnesota Vikings. Anybody with me?
Are you wanting us to talk about Kellen Mond? I mean, what are you wanting?
I don't know. I wouldn't mind if you guys were like, yeah, Lizzo, she's awesome. Okay, fine. Listen, if people could see the way you're looking at me right now, Friedman, the way you are looking at me is how I feel about you right now.
I'm looking at you the way I always look at you, Chad.
I know, and that's how I always feel about you. It's a mirror. I'm reflective. Simon,
at least there's good mutuality.
Yeah.
In this exchange. Yeah.
Simon, give me I want to get to the best sort of quarterback best for week 1 on FanDuel, but I do want you to give me your quarterbacks who are worth the least amount of points against the point spread.
Oh, man. I definitely would have to go through everything because it's still not 100% sure who the starters are going to be. But off the top of my head, man, because there's just some pure trash going to be starting week 1. Like if Andy Dalton's the opening day quarterback for the Bears, pure trash. Like I just don't believe that. I really do think it's going to be Fields because the upside just so high there. There's literally no benefit to sitting Fields. What is he going to learn watching Andy Dalton? I just don't see Andy Dalton showing him the way. So My 5 bottom, I guess my worst quarterback, my worst starter, it pains me to say, but it's got to be Jared Goff. I mean, Jared Goff is
Wow.
he is terrible. The next one up, it's probably going to be Zach Wilson. I'm just not drinking the Kool-Aid like a lot of other people. I like these other rookies better than him. Like even the guy you just talked about, Mond on the Vikings. I like him better than Zach Wilson, which sounds crazy, but it's all about situations at this point. Like I like what Minnesota has around him compared to what the Jets have around him. Man, I hate to do it because I'm high on him, but Sam Darnold, man, we just haven't seen it. He has to prove it for me to believe it. He is one of my lowest ranked quarterbacks every year, just against the spread. I just have no faith with him. Like he's been a negative towards the Jets spread number ever since he's come into the league. So take it as you want. I know people are going to complain, say, how is that his fault? But it kind of is. Next up, my own Eagles, Jalen Hurts. I do not believe in even though I just told you to bet him 75-1. I actually do not believe in Jalen Hurts. I am way down on him in my rankings. And there's a couple guys I could put here just on the fact that they're new to the league. But, I mean, it really is hard to say. But I guess I'll go Trevor Lawrence, even though I really had nothing behind it. It's all the simple fact that he's just a rookie quarterback with a rookie head coach on a team that's still in rebuild mode. So again, if you're betting Trevor Lawrence to win Rookie of the Year, I can't fault you. He is really good, but just against the spread, I just have no faith in him yet. I have to see him play in the NFL first.
Friedman, you are our draft expert. Kellen Mond, Zach Wilson.
I mean, you have to go with Zach Wilson based on draft capital alone, but Kellen Mond is really intriguing. He was a highly recruited guy who has the dual threat capability. And so in that capacity, he does make me think a lot of Jalen Hurts, like a lesser, not Lamar Jackson, but like Jalen Hurts really is the comp for him in terms of what he potentially could do if he is able to get the starting job because of injury or because Kirk Cousins just disappoints. So Kellen Mond, I mean, especially in dynasty leagues, I'm very interested in him for fantasy. Talking about the spread for some of these quarterbacks, 100% agree on Sam Darnold. I think he's my worst rated starter at this point. I mean, Jared Goff is in that bottom 5 for me. Drew Lock is in the group. Of course, there's the question as to whether he even starts in week 1.
I had Teddy starting, but I'm with him on the Drew Lock. I think Teddy will be the starter week 1.
Yeah. So again, there's a question as to whether Drew Lock even starts in week 1. And you look at Houston, Tyrod Taylor, I mean, he's slated in theory to start in week 1, but it potentially could be Davis Mills, a rookie who started very few games in college for Stanford. So whichever one of those guys ends up starting, it's a massive negative, I think, against the point spread for the Houston Texans.
All right, Simon, we got FanDuel's week 1 quarterback props, for lack of a better term. Give me 2 or 3 you're looking at right now.
Well, there's only 4, so I'll give you all 4 just for fun.
No, I just want 2 or 3.
Damn it. All right.
All right,
so,
fine. Give me 4.
Well, it'll be so fast, Chad, you won't even notice. All right, for Denver, right now they have Drew Lock plus 145 or Teddy Bridgewater plus 145. I just told you, I think it's going to be Teddy's job. I just think that once they get into camp, Teddy's going to be so much better than him. But it's not one of my best bets. I have another one I like better. But if you're going to bet on this side, I like the Teddy side. Moving on. New England Patriots. Mac Jones is plus 170. Very intriguing, but I would still take Cam there, minus 185. I just think Bill likes the team he has there. It's a veteran team. They have all these guys back on the defense, all these new free agents. I think they're going to start the year with Cam. So for week 1, I like Cam minus 185. And this one is my favorite bet. For some reason, people are all in on Winston starting for the Saints. He is up to minus 280 now to start for the Saints. I'm not that I love Taysom Hill, but I just think he's going to be better in practice, and he's going to do stuff that Sean Payton, just by chance, might start him just for week 1 for the first series. And that's all we need, Chad. All we need is a guy to start the first snap in the first series. So at plus 220, woo, I really like that value for the Saints. All we need is Winston to have a terrible, terrible preseason, and he's back on the bench. So for me, at that value, plus 220, I love the value there. And to end it on the 49ers, again, I told you, I think Jimmy's getting traded. So my two bets I've done so far, I bet on Trey Lance plus 240, and I bet on Taysom Hill plus 220 start for the Saints. But a really sharp group came in and they bet on Taysom Hill at plus 300. So his odds have dropped down now to plus 220.
Wow, sharp. I love when you're like talking about the sharps, betting on like individual quarterback who will start props. That's what you get when you come to the favorites pod. Sharp information.
The only reason I know that is just because, like, again, I talk to these guys. So sometimes I'm going to give out bets on here. They're not even my bets. These are from other people that have done the work. Like we talked in the Super Bowl, that 1.5 field goals in the first half. That wasn't my bet. That was someone else's bet, but I bet big money on it because I trust those people's opinions. So this is kind of the same thing where I'm just getting information. I'm relying it to you guys. I have no idea anything that's going on in the 49ers, but if I'm getting good information that they are trying to move Jimmy and that's the plan is they move him before the season, how can you not take that plus 240 on Trey Lance to start week 1?
I love it. Freeman, what do you think of that?
I love both of those. And I actually did take Taysom Hill at a higher number than this. I think I got it around 280. But I think the Taysom Hill, Jameis Winston situation is much closer to 50-50 than people think. And the exact same thing with Garoppolo and Lance. So easily I'm on the side of plus 240 with Lance, plus 220 with Taysom Hill. I really like both of those bets.
All right, there you have it, folks. We have gone through quarterback rankings. We have gone through quarterback room rankings. We have gone through quarterback against the spread rankings. We have gone through Chicago Bear quarterback rankings, and we have gone through the 4 best who will start props at FanDuel right now. That is a full service podcast for you from the favorites here on the Volume Network. I am Chad Millman. I was joined by Simon Hunter, by Matthew Friedman. Download us from Apple Podcasts, from Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Until we see you on Thursday for the Thunderdome. Love you.